He noticed several Forsworn guarding the priest, who could be easily dispatched with a bow.
If I had one! Sorry.
Hi, welcome back to our adventure where we play Skyrim on the hardest difficulty, and if we die once, we delete the save file. This is our progress so far. As an added twist, every video, comments can suggest a restriction we'll have to adhere to, and this is what we're dealing with this week. Luke Watkins suggests only using hold weapons, which would be a great suggestion if I was able to read. Reading this suggestion made Legendaddy glad he was illiterate, which left him with this one. Not allowed to use a bow. This was interesting because last episode we put all of our points in archery. The challenge was accepted, now all we need to do was sell the bow.
A guy just pulled in the parking lot with a bow he wants to sell. So Chum and I are gonna go check it out. It looks like it might have been a trade piece to the Indians. That's Venetian glass.
Yeah.
And the glass beads is completely normal. They had to trade the Indians something for this. They didn't want cash, they didn't want coins.
Yeah.
They wanted stuff.
Yeah.
And how much you want for it?
1,000 doubloons.
I think it's worth a lot less, like 99,000 less.
Yeah, okay, it's a deal.
If something's stolen, I don't want it in my shop, plain and simple. We're a highly regulated business, and occasionally you get that bad apple that makes us look bad. Usually it's some extreme idiot that walked in here, sold me something stolen, gave me his ID, signed paperwork. He killed the person he stole it from.
Because of us, we're the reason that case got solved.
This is bullshit. I am entitled to a government-appointed attorney.
So Legendaddy had to spend a few days in prison, but at least he was now free of his bow. When he regained his freedom, he set off to Riverwood, where he returned the Golden Claw to Lucan. He stated that it was smaller than he remembered, and then he also complained about the Golden Claw. With that errand completed, Legendaddy returned to Markarth, where his new homie Caselmo taught him recipes for the dankest of kush. This would result in a fair trade way to make money. It was then time to continue the House of Horror questline. Unsure of what to do, Legendaddy just started blasting on the first motherfucker he laid his eyes on. And this was the intended way. Luckily for Legendaddy, this guy was no match for Shield Bash, Vegetable Soup and the Flame Atronusi. Further down in the House of Horrors, he laid eyes on Molech Baal's Rusted Mace. The only way to restore this weapon to its former glory is by cleansing it of a curse that was uttered by a priest of Boethia. As luck would have it, this guy is almost always randomly held in a Forsworn camp, and Forsworn on Legendary are always fun. Filled with the rage of 1,000 stubbed toes, Legendaddy fell in his trusty rotation of consuming vegetable soup, trying to shield bash and outsourcing most of the damage to his ephemeral and fiery secretary. It worked. Trying to keep up with his New Year resolution to celebrate the small successes in life, Legendaddy rewarded himself with his favorite meal: live mud crab. The vibes were immaculate, and Legendaddy proceeded to the camp where the priest was being held. This exact location was high on a mountaintop that is normally only accessible through a dangerous dungeon, and this is where Legendaddy's years as a free solo climber would finally pay off. After a long and arduous climb that would be made into a documentary one day, Legendaddy finally reached the summit. Here, he noticed several Forsworn guarding the priest, who could be easily dispatched with a bow.
If I had one! Sorry.
A tactician at heart, Legendaddy waited until the cover of nightfall. Not only would this get him some coveted sneak levels, it would also help him to take out threats one at a time. It's easier to make your enemies fall asleep permanently if they're already asleep in the first place. After causing a distraction, Legendaddy attempted to get through the priest's dialogue fast enough to let him be saved, but he was being difficult about it. This left him with no other option but to clear out the entire camp. He had to face enemies that were cowardly enough to conjure flame Atronax, which is a tactic reserved mostly for the lowest of the low. Killing the conjurer also gets rid of the Atronax, and after asserting his dominance this way, the rest of the camp fled in terror. It was a good night to be Legendaddy. This cleared the way to free the priest of Boethia. However, the priest will only go back to safety if you bribe him to do so. With the priest going back to the maze of Molech Baal, it was time to lift the curse. But first, we'd have to break the priest.
Crush the spirit from Logrof's bones. Make him bend to me.
Suck my Molech balls.
As Legendaddy would soon discover, torture was a great way to level block, and with one final bash, we completed our daunting task.
When your enemies lie broken and bloody before you, know that I will be watching.
By all accounts, Molek Ball is a bit of a perv, but we did get his mace for our troubles. Despite not having any perk points in one-handed yet, this weapon will serve us well for the time being. Despite it being quite slow, it hits hard without having any perks, and it also steals the souls of our enemies. With a new one-handed mace acquired, Legendaddy immediately engaged in an unarmed brawl. As luck would have it, this guy was also bothering a local saleswoman, who gave Legendaddy some pocket money for slapping him. Legendaddy then met a noblewoman who was wanted for treason. He was faced with a choice: either hand over the woman or kill all of the bandits that were looking for her. Unfortunately for Sadia, this is a permadeath run. After all this nonsense, and being on the radar of the Whiterun authorities, Legendaddy decided it was a good idea to go to the other side of the map. In solitude, the local alchemist asked us if we knew anything about the whereabouts of her daughter, who joined the Imperial military a while ago.
He sent out a party to scout the area. They happened upon a large force. I'm told none of them made it back.
Yeah, she's dead as f***.
I can't thank you for it, not for this. But you have done me a service.
We are now BFFs with the alchemist for some reason, and she'll allow us to take certain items up to a certain value.
I saw you steal that.
This is bullshit. I am entitled to a government-appointed attorney.
After his second prison stint, Legendaddy came to Falkreath. It was here that Legendaddy was tasked with silencing some dudes that knew of the Jarl's proclivities. Hopped up on vegetable soup, he set out to engage in the art of shield bashing once more. After dispatching the bandits, it was time for Legendaddy to reap the spoils of war. It's the best bow he had found thus far. That stung a little. Completion of this quest awarded Legendaddy with the privilege of buying land in Falkreath. This warranted another celebration, which was rudely interrupted by a frostbite spider. It was then time to make a house out of nothing, specifically aiming for the garden upgrade, allowing Legendaddy to grow narcotics of the highest quality. For his interior design, he landed on a bed and an unventilated fire pit, because that combination would help him fall asleep faster. To get his block skill to 50 and subsequently unlocking the perk Deadly Bash, he used his last coin on training and education. This is one of the best early game perks for legendary difficulty, but it did mean that Legendaddy was now broke. To remedy this situation, Legendaddy continued with doing odd jobs for the companions, where his secretary did most of the work while he grinded out sneak levels. Being trained in guerrilla combat, Legendaddy immediately noticed a trapdoor in front of the chest. And unlike Home Alone antagonists, he slightly went past it. Now the culprit of this trap is actually a warlock further down in the dungeon. This served as a good way to test the capabilities of Legendaddy's new mace. He then uncovered the journal of the freshly defeated warlock, where he wrote about the fates of the people that actually fell in the trapdoor. This would have broken his sensitive little heart if he would have been able to read the contents. Instead, Legendaddy used the bodies of the fallen for sneak training.
Thank you.
This impressed the companions deeply, and he was now ready to take his trial with them. And this is where we currently stand. If you want to suggest a restriction for next video, let me know in the comments and I won't do my best at all to make it happen.